Today's scripture is from the book of Matthew, chapter 4, verses 18 through 22. As Jesus walked along the Galilee Sea, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, throwing fishing nets into the sea, because they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," he said, "and I'll show you how to fish for people." Right away they left their nets and followed him. Continuing on, he saw another set of brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with Zebedee, their father, repairing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him.
Said that actions speak louder than words. You ever heard that? My mama used to tell me that a lot, especially when I would say, "I love you, Mama," and I'd be trying to use that to buy my way out of some trouble. And she'd say, "Actions speak louder than words." Indeed, I would proclaim that I think words and actions melt together to sort of justify and confirm each other oftentimes. And in this scripture, we see some incredible actions based on a few important words. So let's set this up a little bit. We're back to Matthew this week. We were in Matthew 2 weeks ago when we talked about the story of Jesus and disciples, and Jesus reminding us who we are and whose we are. We remembered our baptism in those moments. And last week we jumped over to John a little bit and talked about the call of their very first 4 disciples and how that transpired. Today we're back in Matthew, reading again about Jesus calling disciples and finding differences from the story in John, and that ought to make the self-proclaimed literal believers of Scripture squirm just a little bit. That's a separate sermon. Let's set this up a little bit. So in our scripture that Elaine read, we have this Rabbi Jesus coming. And we can get caught up and read right by this stuff, but this is important. These details are important because in the ancient community, a rabbi was not someone who went out and found people. No, instead, people went to rabbis. So rabbis were the seekees, not the seekers. But in this story, once again, Jesus turns the tables around, as so often we find in Scripture, turns things upside down. So we see Jesus as the one who's going out to seek people. Jesus the one who is speaking to people who are not speaking to him. Jesus turning things upside down. Hang on that a minute, because that upside down one's going to come and bite us in a minute. All of this was very unusual. Jesus walks up to these men who are fishing with their dad, and we'll talk about that a bit too, because that's an important detail. But they're fishing, and he walks up and says, "Follow me." Not a question. "Hey, want to do something fun? Hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, I've got something over here that's great and shiny and big and rich and popular." No, Jesus just walks up to two guys and their dad, going about their daily livelihood of fishing, and says, "Follow me." And they did. Now we may see, well, of course they did. It's Jesus. But do we know if they'd even ever heard of this guy? And do we know if they had any partially filled nets before they left? Because that would be a big deal. That was their livelihood. So we didn't know if they ever heard of Jesus. We didn't know if their nets are filled. But what we know is that they left their boat and their nets. And we know they left their father Zebedee. Again, a detail we can brush right over. But remember, friends, in the ancient community, the number one thing for sons was to be loyal to their fathers and to the business of the family. But not here. It was here where it all started. Do you remember later what Jesus said to Simon Peter? Upon this rock I build my church. Peter is where it all began. Out of nowhere comes this rabbi, being the seeker of the seekees of the brothers. Out of nowhere he comes. And there's a few lessons we can learn about that. These brothers and their dad would have probably fallen into one of three categories. Either they would have been tax collectors who sold fishing franchises, or they would have been folks that owned boats and leased to day laborers, or they would have been day laborers themselves. And scholars think they were probably number two, leased boats to day laborers. But they were willing to leave all of that, the only thing they knew, and their dad, to follow Jesus. What lessons could we possibly pick up here? First, I think, is the lesson of the power of God's call. I've shared with you all, and you may get tired of hearing it, but I've shared with you the power of God's call on my life. You know, when I left Pikeville to go to Eastern on a basketball scholarship, I wanted to be a business teacher and a coach. So I got my undergraduate degree in business education. I've never taught a day in my life. The other side of that story is that after 2 years at Eastern, I lost my basketball scholarship in a situation that frankly is still too painful for me to talk much about. But I transferred to the University of Kentucky. And my mom probably doesn't come to church as often as she should because she knows I'm always going to call her out. So here she is, and here I go. My mom convinced me that really teaching wasn't going to be that great a career, that I should become a pharmacist. Now I want to tell you all, I spent most of my high school years shooting free throws, not studying chemistry or calculus. But I enrolled on the advice of my mama. You hear her already starting to laugh. Transferred to UK and enrolled in the pre-pharmacy program. Steph, you're really smart, and so you're going to get this. I had, for that semester, a 0.3 GPA. Not 3 points. A 0.3. I was working at Begley Drugs at the time. I don't know if y'all remember that, as a cashier. And I couldn't stop working because I was getting a little money from my dad's Social Security, so I had to keep working. I knew that I was completely lost in 4 out of 5 classes, and I had a shot at the 5th, which I did. I got a D in that one. So I kept working at Begley. I told them to give me more hours. It was hush-hush with mom and dad. I was working. I was going to school, and I got a 0.3 GPA. Was put on academic probation. Not cool or fun. Rebounded, though, got back into the education program, finished my undergraduate, later worked at UK and got my graduate degree in business education. And I have yet to teach one day in school. The truth is, and this is a story that many of you know, I always feel that I was called to be a minister. I felt it as a teenager. But standing in the Southern Baptist Church as a young girl and a girl who knew at that point that I was gay, I didn't answer that call. I put it on the shelf. But when the power of God's call gets you, often it won't let you go. And so, some 30 years after I heard that call for the first time at the age of 44, I answered the call and went into seminary and now ministry. Have you ever felt the power of God's call? And then filled in a blank that it's too late, it's too early, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not right enough, you're not whatever enough. This morning, friends, might you be open to hearing and feeling the power of God's call. There's another lesson about this story. They left their comfort zones. They're probably pretty good at fishing. And comes this guy out of nowhere and says, "Follow me." That's a pretty big request, huh? When I read this story, I think to myself, why in the world would they do that? And then I hear someone saying, well, why not? Brenda's not in here, but she tells the story of getting her undergraduate degree in early childhood. And then folks said, you'd make a great teacher. And she thought, I've already gone to Georgetown. My parents spent all this money getting me this degree. And she went home to her mom and dad and she said, I'm thinking about going back to school and getting my teaching degree. But, I'll be, 28, 29 years old if I do that. And her mom said, sort of a translation of why not, her mom said, well, how old will you be if you don't do it? Brenda was called to be a teacher. Sometimes our fear, our indifference, our complacency causes us to just get too darn comfortable and not be willing to think about the possibilities that God might have for us out of our comfort zones. I talked to the kids about this fiddle. And let me just tell you something. I taught myself how to play guitar. I taught myself how to play piano. Anybody else play fiddle? Elaine? Brandy? I see another hand back there. Elaine, is this hard for you? It's really hard for me. To be completely honest, that was the only good thing about last Monday's snow. I could call Sam and go, Sam, let's just cancel that lesson. I'm finding it really hard. But friends, let me tell you what else I'm finding it. I'm finding that it's teaching me so many lessons. Playing softball was easy for me. I never understood why people got up there and kept whiffing at the ball and not hitting it. It's easy, just hit the ball. Elaine answers, well, some parts of it are hard. And I would bet if Sam compared our lessons, he would be like, Marsh, you need to hang out with Elaine a little more. It's hard. But it's a great lesson for me. Because I'm going to stay at it. I'm going to try to stay at something I'm not good at naturally. Not to hopefully be able to play the rest of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star someday. But if I learn it, I'm playing it for y'all. I'm going to stay at it because of the lessons. The lessons of what God can do if we're willing to try and do things we're not good at. Do you still dream? Or do you think that day has passed?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be... Hey, I never thought of that. Let me think about that. Whoa.
I want to be a teacher when I grow up.
Elementary teacher. I like little kids.
A babysitter.
A pastor.
A dolphin trainer.
A dancer that eats bugs. A hair cutter.
A person who helps in charities.
I'm a cashier at Walmart.
An author. Chapter books about mythical creatures and animals and things.
I want to be a lawyer.
Lawyer.
Pilot. Pilot. And a dad? A pilot racer dad? Scientist. Paleontologist. Mines for dinosaur bones and studies them. YouTuber. Movie star. A famous actor. Actor.
On stage.
On TV.
On Disney Channel.
Or commercials. I gotta be a model.
I'll work it.
If I want a model, I'll just be a policeman. Police officer. A cop. I want to do car chases. Catch bad guys. A superhero. Batman. Spider-Man.
I would like to go into the U.S. Army because my grandma, she loved the Army, but she never went into the service.
I want to be the third African American gymnast. Gymnastic coach.
I want to be a professional dancer. Dance teacher.
Ballerina.
Professional soccer player. I have a shirt on right now that's for Barcelona.
Soccer player.
Basketball player.
Basketball, football, or soccer player.
Or baseball. I can never choose.
I do not know.
I'm still working on that. Maybe when I grow up I'll pick. I already have a whole plan. Serve the Air Force for 20 years. Become a businessman. Make my own company for cars. I want to be a Pokemon trainer. I want to work at Target.
I want a cake. I want to be a pop star, rock star, singer.
I want to be a cook, but I don't really know how to actually cook. I want to be an artist.
Painter. I want to be an artist that goes around painting walls.
An artist and a video game maker.
Video game designer.
Video gamer.
I want to be a filmmaker. Whatever my dad is.
Oh, do you know what your dad is?
I'm not sure. I would be a doctor, a mermaid, doctor.
Heart surgeon. Neurosurgeon. Cardiologist.
Gynecologist.
Pediatrician, the kid's doctor.
Pediatrician.
And why do you want to do that?
I want to be a doctor and then I can wear rainbow sweatpants.
I really want to be a nurse. Everyone says you have to be very good at science and math. I'm not really, but I still want to be one.
I want to be a pet doctor because I like helping animals. Pet vet.
Veterinarian.
Zoologist. Princess Fairy Zookeeper.
How much do you think they get paid?
$29.
That was 100 kids sharing with us when I grow up, I want to be. Out of all of them, and there were some really cute ones, out of all of them, my favorite one was when the kids said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. My brothers and sisters, it's never too late to dream. We too might not know. Maybe not know what tomorrow holds. Maybe not know what our what next is. Maybe be comfortable with our fishing nets, either empty but we're still on the boat, half full, or very, very comfortable. Jesus walked up to those two boys and their dad and said, "Follow me." And we read the story and go, why? They responded, well, why not? Let's go. When I grow up, I want to be, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Between God and I'll figure it out. May you too.